Hello and welcome to Hard Copy on Channels Television, the program where we bring you tough conversations with the people in the news. I am Bukola Koka, standing in for your regular anchor, Kayla Megwa. And so tonight, we turn our attention on the Nigerian Senate as we seek to feel the pulse of the highest legislative authority in the land on critical subjects of national development that took shape while it was on recess. The National Assembly resumed legislative business this week, with the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, charging his colleagues at the upper chamber to take the business of governance seriously. And this charge has undoubtedly set the tone for their work as their resumption comes on the heels of mounting socioeconomic challenges. And as they settle in for business, the Nigerian public will be looking to see how the lawmakers will address issues like the medium-term expenditure framework, fiscal strategy paper, the 2026 appropriation bill, the ongoing constitution review process, among other issues that will shape the country's growth trajectory in the coming months. And so I got a rare opportunity to explore these issues with the Senate leader and senator representing Ekiti Central Senatorial District, Senator Opeyemi Bamidele. I started by asking him which issues the Senate will prioritize among the many thorny subjects begging for answers.
The 10th Senate has resumed, for the third legislative year, from our recess. And there's no doubt in the fact that we have a lot of issues to deal with, as we're resuming. But our priorities will be more in the area of trying to amend certain aspects of our law that we believe are germane to good governance in the country. One of such is the urgent need to amend very critical aspects of the Electoral Act, of 2022 as amended, and there's a need for us to be able to update the electoral laws, in a way that it will reflect the thinking of the Nigerian people, and in a way that will also ensure further that the votes, of Nigerians count, at the polls. The need for us to be able to also criminalize certain aspects, of electoral malpractices, either on the part of the umpires or those who are expected to participate as voters, or those who are contesting election, as beneficiaries.
You touched on something critical, and that was for constitution review, be reaching out to the governors. Yeah. And, some would say that is where the rubber meets the road when you consider the constitution review exercise of the last National Assembly, where the Deputy Senate President spoke to issues regarding opposition to a critical item, just state police. So how optimistic are you that you would get a, smooth sail through the state assemblies on this particular item on constitution review?
Well, when we talk about smooth sail, really, we can't cast it in stone. It depends on what the issues are and what the local interests are. And when I say local interests, I mean also the peculiar interests of the states as federating units. We, in the last constitutional review that we did during the 9th Assembly, we made some progress in trying to redefine the roles of state governments versus federal governments, in governance, especially when it involved what should be on the exclusive list and what should be on the residual list, as well as the concurrent list. We did a lot of adjustments, and we will continue to do that where necessary. And in being able to do that, we will need to engage, with our governors. We must have an understanding of federalism in such a way that, nobody takes offense, at our attempts to work towards, redefining the roles of the states and the federal government. Whichever way you want to look at it, whether you call it devolution of powers or but it's important that we can't just do this from an ivory tower, sitting down in Abuja in the National Assembly to do all of those things without engaging, with the governors. And when I say governors, we're even taking it beyond the governors. We also engage with even our local government, authorities and traditional institutions and, like I said, civil societies and professional bodies. We must all understand, the need for us to make some amendments in a way that we are not left behind by the international community. Democracy also comes with its own global best practice standard, and we should not be seen to be falling below this standard, and we need to reflect this in the kind of amendments that we make. But it's too early in the day to say who is for what and who is against what, because there are some of the issues that you just cannot decide without really getting the feel. I mean, one of such critical issues is, what greater role to be, prescribed for women, in the governance process of our country. There are people who feel that even in parliament, there should be some specially reserved seats for women, and all that. It doesn't matter how much, excited we are about this. We have to ensure that we engage with other stakeholders and they're in support. Because if they're not in support, I mean, it happened there, 8th Assembly, 9th Assembly, we voted on some things in support of certain things. They were shut down at the state level, and there were also some things that we did not support that some states would have wished that we supported. But I can assure you that some of the things that people are so loud about with respect to the ongoing constitutional amendment process probably not even the most important things. One of the things people are so loud about is creation of more states. I don't know that given the state of the nation and our economy and all that, we feel some other things are much more germane and urgent and critical than creation of additional states. Some of us would rather see how existing states can be made more viable. You can talk of creation of additional local governments and all that, but again, personal opinion will not count. What will be important is what do the majority of the stakeholders think, and that's why we're trying to make sure that this amendment process is as people-centric, as possible.
Speaking of what is contentious, one item would be electoral reform, and being more specific would be election timetable, appointment of the INEC chair, that power to be removed from the president and to be vested in an independent body. I wonder what the National Assembly is anticipating when these items get to the executive. What is the National Assembly's position towards that, first of all, from the perspective of the Senate leader, if we can get a sense of the feeling of your members? And would the Senate be exercising a veto power should the executive not assent to it if you got concurrence from the other states on this particular item?
Well, let me put it this way. The National Assembly on its own does not have an opinion, and I'm saying this as the leader of the Senate. Neither do I have an opinion. President of the Senate or Deputy President of the Senate, none of them has an opinion. The Speaker does not have an opinion.
They don't have an opinion.
The Deputy Speaker. No, because the essence of what we are doing is to give Nigerians a chance to come up with their positions. And that's why sometimes we even go public with this. Each time we organize a public hearing, we even did this at the zonal level before we went on recess.
But if there was a groundswell of support, which we're already seeing for electoral reform, particularly those items.
Yes.
And we understand, the resistance that this got under the last administration when it was difficult to secure assent to electoral reform. But now that we have, a groundswell of support from the people, if it got to the executive and there's resistance, would the National Assembly be exercising its veto power on that item?
Well, I mean, that was your second question I was going to address. Really, I don't see that happening, and I will tell you why I don't see it happening.
Which do you not see happening? Resistance from the executive?
Yes, I was part of the amendment of both the electoral process as well as the Constitution in the 9th Assembly as a senator, to the glory of God. I'm also a leading part, of the same process this year, both in my position as a Senate leader as well as the vice chairman, of the Senate Committee on Constitutional Amendment, which is chaired by the Deputy President of the Senate. And I know we're engaging. Part of why I would say confidently that I do not envisage, any resistance from the executive arm of government is because I know we are consulting, we're engaging. And when I say we're engaging with the executive arm of government, I'm not just talking about the president, of the country. There's the Office of Attorney General, which is working with us almost on a daily basis. There's the Office of SGF. There are peculiar and specific relevant ministries, departments and agencies of the federal government that are engaging with us. That's part of what we are trying to avoid now by saying between now and December, we want to do whatever we have to do in the area of amendment to Electoral Act so that it will not be close, to the forthcoming 2027
Speaking of which, can you guarantee that there would be no stalling such that, the approval, the assent that is being expected will not come after the elections would have been fought and won, and the administration would have secured the second term, if it indeed it does? Can you give that assurance? Let me
put it this way. There's no need to give an assurance here. What is important is that we have to do the right thing. Okay, there's a process to be followed, and part of the process is what I've been explaining. And also, we are not just being esoteric about this. We're not just being theoretical. We are engaging. A lot of things that will be in the electoral bill will be things coming from either the civil society or from traditional ruler or from the executive arm of government or from this National Assembly based on what our constituents are telling us. And once it's an aggregation of all of that, the areas of, discord, disagreement, will be less, but again, it's a democracy. There's still no guarantee that even in spite of all of this, that everything that we take to the executive arm will be endorsed just as presented. You must still have a situation where the president will say, okay, it is not my intention to withhold my assent, but please take a second look at social clause, and see how you can further amend it. Or I'm withholding my assent on this particular provision because of social reason. So all those things could happen. But the way to minimize that, is to engage as much as possible, which is what we are doing. Again, part of our strategy for constitutional amendment is to also do the amendment proposals in clusters, rather than make the whole thing a single bill, which would either be assented to, in whole or rejected in whole. Because when you have a single bill, as it happened in the past, the president can just because of one clause or one provision, withhold his assent to the entire bill. But today, what we're trying to do is if we're talking about, gender bill, for instance, we take it as gender bill and we pass it, and that is that's what we have in that cluster. So if the president is assenting to it, is assenting to it, as an entity. And if you are taking another one that has to do with judicial reforms, that's another cluster. If you are taking some other ones, that will further enhance that, maybe the electoral sector or the financial sector is strengthened, that is what we'll do. Just like we passed, different bills on tax reforms. They didn't come as a single bill. We had to consider them in different lights, based on what they were trying to achieve.
Sounds like a job of work, and I certainly do not envy you at this time, but it's what you signed up for. We're going to remain with constitution review and, of course, touch yet again on the Senate's work of scrutiny, but that will be after the break. This is Hard Copy on Channels Television. I've been talking with Nigeria's Senate leader, Senator Opeyemi Bamidele. Let's take a break now. When we return, I have more questions. You don't want to miss it. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is still Hard Copy on Channels Television, and my guest today is Nigeria's Senate leader and Senator representing Ekiti Central Senatorial District, Senator Opeyemi Bamidele. And in the last half hour, we've been looking at the work of constitution review and the agenda before the Senate as it resumes plenary for the third legislative year. Thank you for holding on, sir.
It's my pleasure.
So, in the last 48 hours or so, the work of confirmation of the Senate has been under scrutiny, particularly following the resignation of the Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation. And, questions are being asked about the culture of bow and go, and how much background work is really done to confirm the integrity, the qualification of the appointees of the administration. To those questions, how do you answer as Senate leader?
Well, we put it this way. To begin with, only God is infallible. And secondly, I will also say that for us, it's a matter of integrity. I would explain first the whole concept of take a bow and leave, which Nigeria popularly call bow and go. This is not a common practice, it's not a general practice, with us. It's a privilege that is extended only to former members of the National Assembly, all right, as legislators. But when it comes to other people or other nominees who had not occupied similar position, we'll go through the entire process. And again, let me add, even for former members of the National Assembly who will be asked to take a bow and leave at some point, they would have gone through, the other current screening process, security background, whatever clearance they needed to get, code of conduct, bureau, every other agency of government that was supposed to do its due diligence would have done it before they come to us, So even former members of National Assembly still go through that. The only thing, the privilege of take a bow and leave, affords them is just that we don't keep them there to start asking them questions like other nominees that were just meeting for the first time, either in person or by public record.
But in this case, there are obvious discrepancies when you consider the explanations coming through from the investigating media platform and the institution. Yeah. So that leaves a question mark on the work of confirmation of the Senate. In your scrutiny, doesn't it also require a verification of the documents tendered before your institution?
Yes, we'll verify.
So something hasn't been done here.
But to verify, we have to rely also on public agencies. And mind you, we knew the whole process might not even be infallible. That's why we enacted the Freedom of Information Act. Let me tell you, that is what is at play here. The National Assembly, following global best practice, enacted the Freedom of Information Act, which now we make it compulsory for agencies of government and other relevant bodies to submit information upon request to any individual or organizations that so decide. So if you are coming to us with your set of certificates, and that's why we make these things public, it's also for people, even in your constituency and other members of public, to also acting on the Freedom of Information Act, law, to go ahead and do further verification. So the job of verifying is not just for the National Assembly. The National Assembly had laid, a basis, a legal framework.
Are you absolving the Senate of responsibility in that regard?
No, I am not. I have never done that. I am not doing that. And what you say, it's only a question of how do you define due diligence? All right. When people come to you as nominees from the executive arm of government, and papers are brought to you. And you have probably just a few days, to take a look at their documents, because this whole process now calls for, that's why I say it calls for greater alert and diligence on the part of everyone.
Senator Natasha Akpotiuduaghan's case, some would say symbolizes, and truly so, the broader struggle for women representation in politics, either in elected positions or in appointed positions. But since her resumption now, what is the Senate going to do in form of action to reconcile the leadership with the senator? Because it appears as if it's an elephant in the room, following months of allegations of sexual harassment, her suspension, and the view that the Senate doesn't tolerate dissent, is misogynistic, and is opposed to women. So what is the Senate going to do, to serve as a form of closure to that chapter?
Well, I'll put it this way. Some other people will be upset if they were asked that kind of a question. But I would rather just take it, in a very calm manner. To begin with, I disagree that the issue between the Senate and Senator Natasha was about women emancipation. I totally disagree with that narrative. I don't know how much you followed the process. And let me also say for the record that Senator Natasha was not the first senator, even in this 9th Assembly, to be suspended. Senator Ningi was suspended, and he's a man, all right? And today is happily part of us, is part of the extended leadership of the Senate, adding a lot of value. I will respect his opinion, and all that. What is important is that we are working in an institution. It's an institution where first you have to realize, either you are a part of that institution or you are outside of the institution, that institution is bigger than any individual member of that institution. And that we met an institution that must be preserved in integrity, in stature, and the only way you can do this is by appreciating the fact that there's a set of rules, and it is these rules that will guide whatever we do in the Senate. Concerning
the budget, the expenditure of this administration, the borrowing plan, the argument put forward by the executive was that, it was going to spend the money on key infrastructure projects. But we see reports daily of failing expressways and reports that the 2024 budget is still being implemented, and funds from the 2025 budget have only been deployed by 30%. So the question is, what is the justification for the external borrowing plan?
Well, I'll put it this way. Again, never again will it happen in this country, and that's part of the position of the current leadership of both the executive and the legislative arm of government. Never again will it happen, that you will run two budgets at the same time, in which case you are using one revenue, all right, to fund two rounds of expenditure, two budgets. Okay, how did we come to where we are? Remember that this administration came in 2023, with a capital budget of 2022 still running, because it was extended till December 2023. All right. So while he was funding 2023 budget, as well as his own revised budget as a new administration, he was also funding the capital of 2022. This dovetailed into what happened in 2024. And today we are talking about still funding the capital element of 2024 budget up to December 31st of 2025, while at the same time, you are funding 2025 budget. Again, I believe this is an issue that Mr. President himself, by the time he's presenting the 2026 budget, will address the nation on, and I would leave it, at that point. But, the new thinking, and the new economic order, for this administration is that it's not going to happen again, that you will use one revenue to fund two budgets. Okay. Right. How that will be achieved is what Mr. President will be coming to address, the parliament on by the time he's presenting the year 2026 budget. Right. But again, let me say, they are talking about failing infrastructure. All right. There were no infrastructures, implemented. All right. With the money just being borrowed. The money just being borrowed, whatever infrastructure that the administration is implementing with the money, are obvious for people to say. It's important that we know that talking about coastal road from Lagos to Calabar, or talking about a road from Badagry to Sokoto and some other parts of the country, much as they are legacy projects, they are also projects, that are capital intensive. Our opponents will never say we are doing well. And that's my, parting shot here. Our opponent will never say we are doing well. When all of them were campaigning with President Tinubu, every candidate or political party said, if I'm elected, if I'm given a chance to be president of Nigeria, I will stop oil subsidy. They are stealing Nigerians' money. I will collapse forex window. I will do this. I will do that. Now we are doing it. And they are the ones criticizing us. Because they know we are doing the right thing, and our economy is improving.
All right. I could follow up on that in many different ways.
Yes. This is the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Okay.
And we are seeing a lot of
Thank you very much for your time on the program. I've been talking with distinguished Senator Opeyemi Bamidele, Nigeria Senate leader, and of course the senator representing the Central Senatorial District. Thank you for your time, sir.
It's my pleasure.
And that's our package for tonight. Thank you so much for being there. Join me again same time next week when I bring you another round of interesting conversations. I am Bukola Koka. Bye for now.